Great Gator Gravel Grinder, Great Gator Gravel Grinder, Great Gator Gravel Grinder.
So we're following Gary Mendenhall, the owner promoter of the 4G Gravel Grinder, and we're at Schnebly's Winery and Brew Pub. He's opening the door for me. That's very nice. You're a classy act.
Thank you, thank you. And then this is the wine tasting.
Welcome to the Riders Rep channel, where we discuss all things cycling. I'm your host, Mike Lipschutz. Today we're going to be spending some time at Schnebly's Winery and the Miami Brewing Company with Gary Mendenhall. We're going to talk about cycling, gravel riding, his event, the 4G, and share some great stories. Thanks so much for joining us.
What's up, everybody? This is Mike with the Riders Rep channel. Today is a really exciting day for me. I get to speak with a good friend of mine, Gary Mendenhall. Gary is the creator of the 4G Gravel Grinder, one of the biggest gravel rides in South Florida, possibly in Florida for the state. This is the fourth year that you've done this?
No, this is going to be, I started in 2014 was the first, so this will be my sixth year.
Sixth year. So before we get started, wanted to take a second and thank the big sponsors of our show. First one is ReSTOR Labs. ReSTOR Labs is a CBD recovery line. This is a line that's specifically focused towards athletes. It's great for things like bruises, road rash, saddle sores, or even just muscle soreness. If you use the coupon code ML10, you can get 10% off at this 10% discount on checkout. Also, Olympus Speedworks. Olympus is a premium line of carbon fiber wheels, frames, components, as well as custom apparel. Again, if you use the coupon code ML10 at checkout, you can get a 10% discount on anything that you purchase. So today, we're at the Miami Brewing Company, and we're here to talk about Gary, some of Gary's experiences, cycling advocacy, as well as the 4G Gravel Grinder. I want to introduce you to Gary first.
Hello, I'm Gary Mendenhall, and I've known Mike since we worked together for a couple of years with J&B.
6 years.
6 years at J&B Importers, and we've still remained in contact as friends on and off. And you know, he offered to do this interview, and I was like all on board. I'm behind Mike. I support what he's doing, and it's good to see him back in Florida.
Awesome. Thanks, Gary. I'm really excited to talk to you. You know, when we had the discussions about coming on the show and you getting on the show, it was really exciting to me for a couple of reasons. One of the main reasons that this interview was exciting to me is the 4G, which stands for Gary's Great Gravel.
No, I don't put my name in my event. No.
Oh, okay.
It's Great Gator Gravel Grinder.
See, you learn something new every day.
Yeah, it's Great Gator Gravel Grinder, 4G.
And when Gary created the 4G, one of the motivating factors for creating this event was fundraising. And what I want to do is let Gary talk a little bit about the charity that this is raising funds for. So, Gary, I'd like to talk with you a little bit about that. Can you tell us about the charity?
Okay, the charity that we get the donations for through the registration goes to Radio Lollipop, Nicholas Children's Hospital, Radio Lollipop. And the reason that it goes to this specific charity is when I first started thinking about doing a gravel ride or an event, it was actually probably about 2 years before I actually did the event, probably back in 2012. I already had a name, I already had a concept, I already had all this stuff in my head. One of our co-workers that Mike was at J&B when she was working with us was Megan Wentworth. And Megan, unfortunately, she came down. She got a serious form of cancer that basically took her from us just days before the first 4G in 2014. And I talked with her a few days before the first 4G, And I asked her, I said, hey, I'm doing this event. I said, I could take some of the registration fees instead of just for, I had no idea what I was going to do with the registration fees at first. I'm like, do you have any doctor bills or any lawyer things that you need money for? Because I know what you're going through, and, you're going to have something to help the family afterwards. And without even missing a beat, she's like, no, just, if you're going to take a registration for a donation, she wanted it to go to Radio Lollipop. Radio Lollipop is an organization she had volunteered with for years. Basically, it's a radio station in a ward in the hospital for children that are there for very serious reasons. It's not just overnight stays, very serious reasons. So Radio Lollipop, they play music for the kids. They have kids on the radio that can play their own music. They interview the kids. They basically keep these children occupied and keep their mind off of what they're really there for as much as possible, and to make that stay as easy as possible for them. And she would go and volunteer, entertain the children, throw parties for them and stuff like this. So this is very near and dear to her heart.
I didn't know Megan for that long, but she really made an impact on me. She was just a very upbeat person, no matter what was going on, no matter what she was dealing with. I mean, I remember talking with her probably 2 weeks after she had feet of her intestines removed, and she was just like nothing happened. And, we all meet somebody, even if they're maybe in our world for just a little while, really, really special. So one thing I want to say is because I really feel that this is a very valuable charity and something that's that is really worthwhile to support. If you are watching this and you're not going to be able to come out to the event, we can still use your support.
Yeah.
So if you'd like to pledge a donation, please get in touch with Gary. What's your email address?
My personal email address is imagary29@yahoo.com. imagary29@yahoo.com.
So,
yeah. So, and one thing I want to point out, even if you can't make it, if you want to make a donation to Radio Lollipop under the 4G, so it goes in Megan's name. Because when we give this donation, it goes to Radio Lollipop, not as a 4G donation. It goes as a donation given by Megan every year.
How much of the proceeds go towards the charity?
100%, pretty much. I mean, last year, what I do is I have fiscal sponsors that pay to put the event on.
So the entry fees can go
So
towards...
the entry fees, as much as 100% of the entry fee goes to Radio Lollipop. And that's always been my goal, that entry fee stays focused and it goes where it's supposed to. For the 2019 event that's coming up, Mack Cycle is going to be, this is the first year I've done this, Mack Cycle is going to be our title sponsor.
Where's Mack Cycle?
Mack Cycle is in South Miami.
Okay.
One of the largest bike shops in South Miami, run by Mary Jane and her 2 daughters.
Family great shop forever.
Forever. Her father owned the shop. She's running it now. A great shop. It's got a history in Miami. This shop has definitely got a history. It's got a following. Mary Jane does so much for this community.
Talk about you a little bit. Gary is one of those lifers in the bike industry. One of the things that really drew me to Gary as a person is the fact that you have a ridiculous amount of stories. Before I ask some of your crazy stories, Gary just informed me that he used to do improv comedy. And the improv comedy came when somebody would give you a color. That was how you started. That was like your
They did
your cue.
did different things, like color monologues. They would do other things where you would do group things, and they would give you a date or a situation, and you just have to go off of those things.
So I want to test Gary out. So give us a little example of your improv comedy. Say maybe regarding beer. Since we're at the Miami Brewing Company right now, yeah.
So beer, you want something for beer.
if there is not any other way to be put on the spot, that is it.
Okay.
I mean, straight on the spot, Gary.
Okay. Well, let me tell you about my first beer. My first beer was when I was a bitty baby. I was maybe 3.5 hours out of my mama's womb. And my mama, she was not lactating enough. And she drank a lot of beer. And she's like, well, I got some of this beer. You know, like you drink a beer once in a while, you got a little bit in the bottom. And you're like, oh, that's just swill, and you throw it out. Well, my mama took that swill. She made it into baby formula. And she would make this special baby formula for me. And I would be fed on the baby formula. And I always thought beer was vitamin B. So I thought I was being a healthy baby, and nobody ever told me I spent the first 24 years of my life stinking drunk. But goddamn, beer's good, and I think everybody should try some. That's pretty much beer for me. Yep.
So you guys get a first glimpse of Gary Mendenhall's comedy routine. Very cool, very funny. So, like I said, you're a lifer in the industry, and there really aren't a lot of us. So, when did you actually get started being interested in cycling? What kind of riding got you into the sport itself and made you decide that you wanted to make a career in cycling?
Yeah, this goes way back, because it was like probably
Before wheels were invented, or
right after electricity and wheels and fire.
Nice.
Yeah. So my brother, him and I were talking, and he had gotten a specialized thumb jumper back in the day with the old thumb shifters.
Just like early 90s, 91, 92?
Late 80s, early 90s, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And he kept telling me about mountain biking. Oh, you got to try it,
Where were we living?
I was in St. Louis. He was in Connecticut. So through his pressure, I started looking into it, and I'm like, okay, so I went out and I bought my first mountain bike was a Trek 320, I think. I bought it at Maplewood Bikes in St. Louis, Missouri.
You're outside. The first guy, the first person I've interviewed on this show who didn't start as a BMX rider.
Never BMX.
So this is the first. This is groundbreaking. So we need to mark this date. Mm-hmm. Whatever today's date is, January 19th?
No, January 23rd.
Oh, man.
Yeah, you're a little bit.
January 23rd. First conversation with somebody who didn't start in BMX.
Did not start in BMX.
So that was your first mountain bike?
That was my first mountain bike. Not my first bike. I had been in bike. I had cycled, like, we grew up in central Illinois, miles out in the, little towns, miles away from anything. So for me to get around before I had a license, I had bikes, and I would ride for miles on my bike. I had an old Univega 10-speed. Back then, they were actually 10 speeds too.
And the foam grips and the safety
and the
levers,
suicide levers, all that good stuff. So when my brother started giving me some flack, like pushing me towards the mountain bike, and I'm like, okay, I got the Trek, and I went out and Castlewood was one of the parks that had mountain bike trails in St. Louis at that time, and I went out fully rigid bike. I think it was 7 speeds back then. And so I went out and I started riding out on the trails. And within a matter of weeks, I figured, I was like, oh, I need to get a bigger bike, like Jaws. I need a bigger boat. Like within a matter of weeks of riding, I was like, oh, this is a blast. I need a better bike. I was hooked. And mind you, this is before any suspension, front suspension too. And so next bike stepped up to a Univega Alpina 5.0 was my next bike, around $700, fully rigid, and I started riding a little more. I was working at a steel fabrication plant, but on the weekends I started looking in, getting hooked up with some bike shops and doing some rides with them. One of the bike shops, the guys there started pushing me like, oh, you should just do a mountain bike race. I'm like, oh, I'm not good enough. They're like,
motor race or to rider race?
No, rider race. Okay. So I was like, okay, there was, I think Sunset Cycles in St. Louis had a series that they did, a training series, like on Tuesday nights at Castlewood.
St. Louis is awesome, by the way. I did a trip out to St. Louis last year, and I think it was called the Palladium, if I'm not mistaken. The venue went to go see Rise Against.
Yes, yeah.
Amazing show.
Yeah.
Amazing band, by the way. If any of you have never heard the band Rise Against and you're into some music that's pretty loud, it's a really, really awesome band. Anyway, so yeah, St. Louis was a great place. One of my favorite places that I've been for sure.
I loved it. It was great. And one of the things, like you mentioned music, one of the things when I first moved to Miami that I really missed about St. Louis was the music. There's so much diversity in music. I could go out every night of the week and go. I used to go and see Wilco, or not Wilco. I used to go and see, before they were Wilco, I used to go see Jeff Tweedy and Jay Ferrara as Uncle Tupelo. I used to go see them before they were even known in a little basement bar in St. Louis.
See, Gary and I could get into a whole tangent about
stuff.
music. Absolutely.
Yeah, but let's get back on the bike before we get too sidetracked.
We could go down a rabbit hole.
I'll go off the rails, man.
Yeah, the music stuff is awesome, and so anyway, that'll be another podcast. If we decide to do a music podcast, you would be the first guy.
Yeah, so I started riding a little more, had a better mountain bike. Some guys in the bike shops that I was riding with pushed me, and they're like, so I went out on one of these Tuesday things, just a total fucking novice, never ridden a race before. Completely rigid, steel bike. Went out and did this Tuesday night race, and I ended up finishing first place.
First race?
Yeah, first race, first place. And one of the reasons is the two guys that were in front of me, both of them DNF'd, and I actually passed one like a few hundred yards before the finish line. So after that race, it was just like I got hooked. And it was just, it was just one of those things. You just get hooked on it. It's like, oh, yeah, I love this, man. So I started getting more into cycling, looking into what was out there for mountain biking and everything. Started upgrading my bike a little bit, and I figured, I wanted to learn how to work on my own stuff, work on my own bikes, because I got tired of having to bring it to a bike shop every time I needed to work on it, and so I took a month off of my job, 5 weeks off of the job I had, and I went out to Oregon. I went to UBI, the United Bicycle Institute, and I took their basic and advanced and managerial classes for bike mechanics. So my plan at that time in 1994 is when I went there. My plan was I was going to go and do this, go back, work at the steel plant for about a year, save up all of my money, and I was going to quit. I was going to throw my bike on a car, and I was going to be a nomad, and I was going to ride around the States and just ride everywhere, and once in a while work at a shop when I needed when I needed some money.
That's kind of a dream of a lot of people. Yeah.
I mean, I was young back then. I was, young compared to what I am now. I was in my early 30s back then. So, I went to UBI. When I came back, I ended up working weekends at various shops. One of the shops I worked at was Southside Cycles in St. Louis, Missouri. And that was the one I worked at until I left there and I started working for GT Rightway back in the late 90s.
Was that in Seattle or
that was in St. Louis
as well?
Yes, that was in St. Louis. And I worked with GT Rightway up until November of '99 when they shut the doors there. When everything
changed. That must have been a dream job for a guy who was a bike guy.
I loved it. I loved it.
Out.
Yeah, it was so cool, man.
Well, GT made they were some of the coolest bikes then.
Yeah,
that was a really good time.
They were the bike back in the day.
That was when they had the triple triangle. Was that around when they were doing that? And they had the triple triangle,
and then they just came out with the iDrive back then too, just before everything. Yeah, with the eccentric, like a large eccentric.
The bottom bracket. Yeah. So for those of you that are kind of newbies, there's some really cool tech that they used to do to for your chain line, as I believe what that was about. And there was a bottom bracket shell inside of the bottom bracket shell that you could rotate in order to move the position of where your cranks were. If that's
so basically your chain line or your chain tension was the same throughout the travel of the bike. So as your bike, because a lot of dual suspension bikes back in the day, as you would go through your travel, the chains would slack up, and if you're hitting some rocky areas, your chain would just fly off. That was a big issue back in the early days of the dual suspension. But the iDrive somewhat solved that. I mean, it was in its heyday back then, but I had I think it was the XCR 1500, and Love that bike. That was great. I mean, it was so fun.
They had some cool stuff. They had really cool carbon bikes
Yeah.
with no chainstays, you know, and the kind of the big thing.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
GT, that was also right around the time when GT was preparing for the Olympics, right? They were the
Correct.
Olympic sponsor, and they
Yes.
had some really funky stuff.
Remember
going
the
on.
Zascar bikes they had all painted for the Olympic team were beautiful.
Yeah,
They
yeah,
were
they
really
did some
nice.
really cool
Yeah.
stuff. That triple triangle was really good too. I think I think UCI may have outlawed that if I'm not mistaken, and requires 2 standard size triangles. And you know,
Yeah.
the UCI does what they do.
Yeah.
So anyway, so you were in St. Louis. You were working for GT Rightway.
Yeah.
What brought you down to Florida?
Well, when GT and Rightway was going out, right around Interbike in 1999, one of the territories I dealt with was like Indiana and Michigan, part of Ohio. And so the outside rep for that area had quit because he knew, you know, he didn't want to be any part of GT after they sold. So he had quit. So they contacted me and asked me if I wanted to go in his place. And I was like, sure, I went. I went to Interbike that year for GT, and while I was there, I talked with several companies. I talked to QBP, I talked to J&B. Those were my 2 big ones that I talked to, because I had dealt with both of those through working retail for years, and I really liked both of those companies. And each one on a different end of a spectrum, but they both service shops
Sure.
the way we needed service.
Well, they're the 2 big distributors.
Yes.
I mean, really, when it comes down to it, and it's also kind of a family kind of environment
Yeah.
too, where
Oh,
if
yeah.
you're leaving a GT Rightway, you want to get into a family environment.
Yeah.
And both QBP, to my understanding, and J&B from experience,
Still have that
a-
feel, yeah.
Mhm.
And even QBP, even to this day, I think they still have that feel, you know. And but is that gonna come up?
It could.
Whatever.
Hey, we're gonna roll with it.
Yeah,
You want
yeah.
to grab the call? We
No,
can
no,
Rank them
no.
on the call. On the
But
call.
nah. But so I interviewed with those 2 companies were my main ones, plus a couple of smaller companies. I ended up choosing to come to Miami with J&B, and GT. We shut our doors in November of '99. I moved to South Miami in January of 2000,
Okay.
and I've been here since. And South Florida's been. It was different at first. It was completely different than the Midwest. I mean, when you come down here, I mean, you don't expect the cultural change that you get.
It's huge.
It really is huge. You cannot underestimate that. But you know, now that I've been here, when I go back to the Midwest, I feel out of place in the Midwest. I feel more comfortable here now.
Well, it's interesting because for those of you that are watching this that are not from Miami or not from South Florida, Gary lives in Homestead. And Homestead is just a little bit further south of Miami.
Yes.
When people think of Miami, they think of palm trees, women in bathing suits, South Beach, you know, whatever. Or they think of like big city.
Mm-hmm.
But when you step a little bit further down here, and you'll see when I show some of the video from the event from Gary's 4G, there's a lot of farmland out here, a lot of Everglades, a lot of really rural areas that you have in the Homestead area, which is so completely different from every other area of South Florida. This is a really unique place. It's a lot of fun, especially to do something like gravel riding, because there's endless systems. If you guys ever come down here and want to go for a ride on the gravel, again, reach out to Gary. He will get you through some of the most amazing areas and some of the really cool gravel spots that you can check out. So that was really cool. So you were with J&B for a while. Can you tell me?
I'm still with them.
Oh yeah, you are still
with them.
Customer service, right?
Yeah,
You guys are
customer service. Yep.
So, how did you get started riding gravel? What made you decide to do some exploring off-road?
I guess one of my inspirations, it was like seeing the gravel events unfolding in the Midwest area from where I was from, like Iowa, Kansas, and everything.
Well, the dirty cans are right. That's like the big one.
And one of the others that was before a couple of years before the DK was the Trans Iowa.
Okay.
Trans Iowa was run by a gentleman named Guitar Ted. And
Guitar is his first name?
Guitar Ted. But his actual name is Mark Stevenson, but it's actually his birthday today, so happy birthday. And
Guitar Ted's real name is Mark. Who'da thunk?
Who'da thunk?
Who'da thunk it?
Yeah.
Right?
So Guitar Ted did the Trans Iowa. I was a huge follower of that. I actually met him at Interbike and spoke with him, and him and I talked back and forth, and I pitched my idea for this gravel ride to him, and he was one that kept pushing me. And one year I was talking to him about it, and he's like, if you just don't go back and do it this year and you come back to an Interbike next year, I'm just going to kick your ass.
Yeah, well, that's motivation, right?
And I'm like, good deal. I don't want to get my ass kicked in Vegas at Interbike. So
what made you want to get out and explore the roads? Was there somebody that motivated you to do it, or what brought the thought even to your head to do something like this?
Well, with the advent of that, we started there was a group of us inside of J&B. One of the guys that was working at J&B on the inside at that time was Andrew Bartek, who's now working with Maxxis Tires. So we just started, basically what I started doing is I started looking at Google Earth or Google Maps. And I started looking at what was out here for me. And I never realized that the C-111 canal, which is like a mile and a half behind us right now, the C-111 canal is a designated bike trail by the county, by the water management system in the county. It's a designated South Date bike trail. I had no clue about that. So started going out there and we started finding these places. One of the guys that was riding with us also, my friends Brian Richard and James Mann.
Good dudes.
Yes.
Shout out.
Very good dudes.
Shout out to Brian and James.
Yes. And they worked with me at J&B. When they moved into town and we started riding out there, James is one of these guys. Brian and I the three of us would be riding together, and Brian and I were talking, and all of a sudden we're like, where's James? We'd have to backtrack. James would shoot off into these places.
His own road.
He'd find this road. So we just started exploring everything. And since then, we caught that bug. It was like so many unique things we found out here. And especially from everything from probably, I would say from 136 Street all the way down to Manatee Bay, which is about 25 miles from us right here. So we started everything from there down to here, further west. We just started finding all this unique stuff that you could not find anywhere else. And it's totally unique to this area, and you won't find anything like this anywhere else.
Well, one cool thing to keep in mind for all of you guys watching this is the Google Earth. Mm-hmm. Take a look at Google Earth, see what kind of dirt roads, what kind of gravel roads are out by you, and do some exploring of your own. Make sure that you're not trespassing on anybody's land if you don't want to catch any hard time from anybody. But yeah, absolutely check it out. It's a great way to see what's going on gravel-wise in your area. If you know the area, that's also helpful, but it's not necessary. So, by the way, we are getting visited right now by Paul?
No, Pete Schnebly.
Pete Schnebly.
Who is going to be Miami Brewing. He's the owner of Schnebly Winery and Miami Brewing Company, and he's also the host sponsor this year at the 4G.
So welcome.
Go in between the two?
Yeah, there you go. It is.
How you doing?
So this is Pete. We did a little tour of the winery and the brewery.
Okay. Can you drink us some beer?
Of course, this is really nice.
This Flamingo Ale is very refreshing.
Thank you.
Yeah,
we threw away all the bad beer, is what I always say. We only kept the good beer.
I'm sure you can get somebody to drink the bad beer.
You might be probably right.
Or, it's...
What I thought was bad beer 10 years, now I'm going, hey, that's pretty good beer.
It's aged, fine aged.
Sour beer and all these crazy
I don't know,
beers.
this has these nice hints of coconut in it that are really nice.
A lot of fruity aftertaste in those. Like you said, the coconut, but you still get that hint of the wheat ale in there too. It's really nice. Yeah.
What brought you out here?
Well, the family starting with my wife and myself.
Okay.
So I grew up in the Finger Lakes of New York State. Grew up working in the vineyards. So I worked in not the wine industry, but the grape industry.
Okay.
And lo and behold, is actually feeding the wine industry. So then I knew all these wineries and winery owners, And then I just got sick and tired of living in central New York and living in crappy weather.
Cold and snow.
And you know, it didn't snow well. You know, I like good snow. I like skiing and I like snowmobiling, but it was crappy snow.
How did you meet Gary? Through?
I think Gary just, you know, stopped on by. He was riding the bike around here and kind of enlightened me. I knew the trails. I didn't call them trails. I just knew that the South Florida Water Management owned all these easements and that people were using them. And sometimes they're using them with, you know, things that they shouldn't, and then sometimes they're using them the right way, which is a bike, running, etc. And so, and I biked on it, but, you know, not like Gary does.
Yeah. Well, the cool thing is you don't have to be here to race. You don't have to be here to compete or ride hardcore. You know, you can go out on a gravel road,
Just enjoy the ride.
park at the brewery, no problem, and go out and enjoy riding your bike. You know, so whether you have a BMX bike and you want to come out with your kids, or you have a jogging stroller or whatever, just go out and check it out. It's really cool to be out in the middle of the Everglades. It really, that openness compared to the congestion of South Florida, the usual
Well, one
South
of the
Florida.
projects that I want to work with on Pete, we've talked about this, is making a map. So when people come here, if they want to come here, there's a map and it shows them routes out here, different mileages.
Right.
So you can go out there and do a 5 mile loop, a 20 or 40 or 60,
Right. You
whatever
really know
you
where you're
want.
going and what you're doing
Yeah.
and the sights to see.
Yes, correct,
Yeah.
correct. And I mean, what a better place to start and stop than, you know.
Than a brewery.
And it's safe. You know,
Yeah.
if you park your car here, you know you're parking your car. Now I got to watch what I say because, you know, you get people coming in and they break
Don't worry,
your
nobody
vehicles,
watches this.
Yeah.
all the time. But, you know, this is a place that, you know, there's people at versus, you know, you just park someplace and then you go, and I'm not sure if that's okay because there's nobody
Traffic
here.
going in. There's also not a bunch of traffic going in and out. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
more if somebody comes in here, they're here for the reason of going to the pub, and they want to hang out, or to the winery,
Right,
and
yeah.
they want to
Listen
hang
to some
out.
music. Yep.
Yeah, as opposed to just like random passerby traffic, which is when you end up running.
I think,
into
you know, what's interesting is I just did that interview with CBS.
Yeah, yeah.
And so they're down here going, hey, this is like the new Napa to San Francisco. You know, that's what the Redland is to Miami.
The place is great. I mean, I could see, you could see really spending a day here. You
Yeah.
know, there seems like a lot to do.
There is.
And
We try to keep activities going. We have live music on the weekends. We have 2 restaurants.
Well, when you guys get a chance, come take a look. Where? How would somebody find your locations or information about the winery and the brewery?
I think, well, first of all, Schnebly Redlands Winery.
How do you spell Schnebly?
Schnebly is SCHNEBLY.
Okay.
So if you just Google that, it'll come up. Then Miami Brewing Company, it's on the same property. So that's all you got to do.
If you check the show notes in the description on the bottom of this page, I'll put a link to the brewery, to the winery, restaurants, so you don't have to Google if you don't feel like putting that energy out there. I know it's really, really hard to do that, and a lot of you are very busy. So we'll put that link in the show notes for you too.
There's a lot more to do out here than what you think. So, you know, come out here and make it a destination.
Well, the other thing is, everywhere else, pretty much everywhere else in South Florida, what do? You go to the beach, you go to the bar, you go to wherever, like the standard South Florida things to do.
Yeah.
Where this is so far outside the norm. When we walked up here, I was really excited. It's just very different. I had no idea that this kind of stuff was out here. Hi, everybody. We're back. We were just talking about before G, how you got started in gravel, about you Google Earth and how you found all the roads. And one of the things that's really cool about that is because Gary has been studying the area, learning the roads, learning the routes for such a long time, that you were able to take that and create one of the coolest, most scenic gravel rides around. And I think that's a big reason why people come out here. You have people coming in from Georgia, North Carolina, Tennessee, you know, other states to come and check out your ride. And if you guys are out of town and you're looking for a cool place to come and check out and a really awesome ride venue, and you're tired of the cold weather, this is really a good opportunity to get the heck out of wherever you are. So I'm gonna ask you, Gary, so can you tell me a little bit about the event this year? What's new? What are the distances of the ride? And what to expect for somebody who's coming out?
Okay, for this year, the biggest thing is the change of venue. We used to have it at a county park, not far down the road. This year, of course, being at the Miami Brewing Company, and as you've seen from the previous videos, the expanse of the area that we have to work with. Basically, Pete is offering up his place as a host for this year, and this is bringing it closer to what I've always envisioned this event to be, and as a destination event. Like, you're coming down here, it's not just about the ride. You're going to come down here, you're going to finish your ride, you're going to want to hang out, because now there's something to do here. We're going to try to have vendors, tents inside of the area. I've got a stage. We're going to try to work on bands. That is still kind of up in the air. That costs money. I don't know how much we really have to work with in that venue yet, but I have friends that are in bands and stuff, but we're going to work on that.
If any of you play in any bands, or there's any musicians that want to volunteer to come out and play, this might be a really good opportunity for you to get in front of anywhere from 300 to 500, 600 people. It'll also be a good way for you to get involved in the cycling community, also to help out. Again, the proceeds for this event are going to a really, really good cause.
Yes.
So it's a good way to get your name out, to get your band heard, as well as to be involved with something that's a really valuable cause for the community.
And one of the things that's cool about this year is with this being a destination, we have an actual event area in the back. We can, if people have families that want to come out, but they don't want to just sit around and twiddle their thumbs while you're out there for riding 3 hours, we're gonna try to have events here for kids. If you want to bring the kids, we can have shorter routes, for that I can have other groups lead. That's one of the things I want to focus on too. And post ride, I want people to hang out. We're gonna have this stage for the awards. I always have, of course, the raffles from all the sponsors. Like I said, Mack Cycle is our title sponsor this year. I'm working with them and some of their vendors from their shop to become part of the event. Maxxis Tires has always been a big sponsor since the beginning. Squirt Lube, Orange Seal, Brighton, which is a GPS computer company out of Taiwan. I just talked with them today. They're on board. And in another company that I'm really excited to have on board, I'm just totally enthralled by the technology they put into such an unusual product, just the fork alone, but how they incorporated that into the complete bikes they do, designed around that fork is Lauf Cycling.
How do you spell it?
L-A-U-F. Lauf Cycling. They're from Iceland, and they're coming down. They're going to be giving me, last year they gave me 2 of their forks to do a silent auction on. To give you an idea, these forks are $1,000 a piece. This is not cheap stuff. There's a lot of innovation behind it. I'm running one of the forks on my bike, and I absolutely love it. It's just completely changed the ride for me.
It's a really unique looking design as well.
Yeah.
When you see one of these forks, you know.
And you'll see it in a little bit when we go for a short ride. You'll see the fork.
So so tell me, what time does the ride start? What day is the ride? When does it start? What are the different distances that the ride does? What can somebody expect when coming out for this?
Okay, so the dates this year, March 23rd, March 24th. March 24th is Sunday. That's the actual event day.
Okay.
March 23rd is going to be more like Lauf is going to bring a demo fleet down, so if people want to come and demo the bikes, we'll have a 8-mile loop for demoing a gravel bike on.
At the meeting, they'll be able to meet up at the Miami Brewing Company.
Yes, it'll be right
do this
here.
Demo? Okay,
it'll
so
be
it's all
right here in the same. Everything's happening right here at the Miami Brewing Company. Afterwards, they can stay and have a beer. We're planning on doing a night ride that night also with Lauf. So that's in the works right now. Sunday, of course, is the big event day. Sign in. I'm I usually start signing at around 7:30 or 8 a.m.
Okay.
We try to get everybody signed in. Of course, we also have the pre-registration, which you can do from my Haku app link that we set up. So
that's Saturday. So Saturday you've got the demos.
the demos.
Are you going to have any vendors out on Saturday, or is it really going to be Sunday is the main?
Sunday will be the main. Sunday I want it to be the main thing.
So
Yeah.
maybe come out Saturday, check out the course, ride
yeah.
around, eat some food, drink some beer before it gets all crowded. The first time I rode on the gravel, I remember, on the road, you don't want to wear headphones. You want to be able to know what's going on around you and the traffic and everything else. But I came out on the gravel, and I was riding the levee over by Markham Park in the Everglades, and I just remember singing along with the radio. There was no one out there. No one could have heard me. I mean,
Yeah.
I might have scared any animals that were in the area, but it was really awesome being out there.
Yeah.
And again, one of the things that we do on the Riders Rep channel is we talk about different aspects of the sport. One of our goals is to get road riders who tend to be a little bit nichey and not want to check out new things. And you know who you are. I'm one of you as well, so I can speak. But we tend to be a little bit cliquey and not want to go out and check out new things. And one of the things we want to do is get road riders out checking out the gravel or the mountain bike trails or the track riders coming out and supporting the other kinds of events.
Yeah.
Because really, we're all in the same boat. We're all
on
swimming in
two
the same
wheels,
pool.
man. We're all on 2 wheels, and we're all pedaling our asses. So it doesn't really matter what kind of bike you ride.
Have a good time.
I mean, I ride all different aspects. I do gravel riding. I do road riding. For me, it doesn't matter. I'm on a bike. I'm having a good time. And for me personally, I think gravel riding speaks to all aspects of my mountain biking and road culture combined. Because gravel riding is part road and part mountain bike. It can be a little technical, but it can also be where you're just down in the drops and you're just going as hard as you can for as long as you can. And the reason gravel riding, I think, has such a benefit over road riding in that aspect is that you don't have to worry about cars. You absolutely don't have anything to worry about out there when you're in the drops. You're just out there and you're enjoying it.
You got to worry about a pothole.
It's
you got to be careful for some of the potholes.
Yes. Well, you do have potholes out here, but it's a different aspect of it. But you blend that mountain biking and the road riding together, and it's an unbelievable experience. Oh, we forgot about the mileage on the events.
So go for it.
So Sunday there's two mileages. There's a 32 and a 62, a half century and a half century.
Okay.
But I know people have bothered me about doing a longer course, but what I like to do, because personally from my mountain biking experience and stuff, racing, is I don't make it easy on the riders. I'll throw in some nice smooth gravel sections for you so you can get down and go fast and get in the drops. But guess what? I'm going to drop you into some shit later on. Don't worry about that. So a 62-mile course out here is it's so much more challenging than a 62-mile course anywhere else. So, I mean, because the diversity of roads, you have the canals, water management access, you have all these dirt farm roads. So, I mean, if you've never been down here, you should get down here. It's something you'll never experience anywhere else. Well, right now I don't have a website, which I am getting to that. I am creating a website because I'm kind of tired of using Facebook as a way to communicate things. I think going to the website with the combination of Facebook and Instagram page. Right now I basically have my 4G group page up where you can then link to the 4G event for this year.
How would somebody find that? Just search 4G?
Yeah, you want to put in, if you put in 4G, obviously you'll get all these phone companies and stuff. You want to put in 4G or Great Gator Gravel Grinder.
Great Gator Gravel Grinder?
Yeah.
That's a tongue twister. Try saying that 3 times fast. Go.
This is, how many beers have we drank? Great Gator Gravel Grinder, Great Gator Gravel Grinder, Great Gator Gravel Grinder. Yeah, I did it.
This guy's impressive. Thank you guys very, very much for watching the show. Once again, we want to thank ReSTOR Labs CBD topical products for your support. Again, use the the code ML10 for a 10% discount on checkout. Also, thank you to Olympus Speedworks for your support of the show. Thank you to Gary so much. The 4G Gravel Grinder is going to be an awesome event this year. I really hope to see you out there. If you have anything to say, have any questions or comments, concerns regarding the show, you can email me, MikeRiderRep@gmail.com. Also, please subscribe to the show, like our social media pages. We'd be happy to take your suggestions on anything that you would like to see in the show in the future. I'm really excited to talk with you guys and to continue doing these shows, and hope you have an awesome day. Thanks so much for supporting.
And thank you, Mike, for giving me this opportunity to be here. It's a pleasure.
Awesome. Thanks,
Hugs,
Gary.
man. All right.